hero, a modern-day hero. 65th anniversary of D-Day, he's only to lead up to millions of people. So how do we know the president of that guy, Donald Trump,
welcome to this episode of Build a Magnetic Network. And you know that saying that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And on my way to success in this entrepreneur journey, and I'm not at the end of the journey by any stretch of imagination, I have encountered many great mentors. And today I have the privilege to introduce to you one of my personal favorite mentors of all time. On my way to success, and I'm sitting here on the yacht in West Palm Beach, just having a great Sunday morning and having a good time with my friend and mentor Orrin Woodward. He's sitting right here, so good to have you here, Orrin.
Glad to be here.
And it's been what I think about 6 years I've been following your work, and you know, we had, of all places, we had the opportunity to meet on Facebook.
Yes.
And so for those of you out there that say social media or internet doesn't work, you better think again. But what really sets the motion in place is really the foundation of communication, and how we are both very genuine people. At least that's what I like to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that really leads to us doing this interview here. So for the benefit of the viewers, maybe you can tell everybody a little bit about your personal story and how you discovered network marketing.
Sure.
And what happened and what really led you to success.
Sure. Well, I was a small town boy. I mean, I grew up in a town in Columbiaville, Michigan, population under 500 people, so real small. Growing up, loved numbers. It wasn't really that social person. In fact, when I graduated high school, the best thing they could come up to say about me was, in my senior yearbook, was arguing early and late. If a line were crooked, he'd argue it straight. So I wasn't destined for success in a people business by any means. And that's kind of why I went into the engineering field, which, Jerry, I know you're an engineer too. So here, you know, I'm a non-people skills person at this point. Loved my numbers. Went into a General Motors Institute called GMI, EMI. Now it's called Kettering. But it's a private engineering school. Loved the engineering. Graduated and started climbing the corporate ladder through General Motors. And so the craziest chain of events, stumbled across networking and then into leadership field, and changed my entire life.
So when you discovered networking, what got you interested? I mean, I remember you were saying how the first time you were introduced to networking, you didn't want to have anything to do with it, right?
Yeah, it's funny you say, how did I discover networking? It's almost, how did networking discover me? Because, you know, I came home from work one day, and Lori had set up a meeting to talk to a window salesman, because we lived in a 1958 house that had the original Anderson windows. And man, I was such a tightwad. I had Lori and myself putting plastic on the windshields to keep the cold air out during the wintertime in Michigan. And this window salesman came over, showed me his cheapest set of windows, and I was walking him out the door when he happened to mention he had another business. And he didn't say networking. He said that he sold baseball and football cards. Well, I loved sports growing up, so I'd collected tens of thousands of football and baseball cards. So I said, well, hey, don't rush out the door. Sat him back down, ended up giving him some baseball and football cards to go sell, and he started selling those. And that's when he contacted me for a networking company. Mm-hmm. And I was not interested. I'd seen those things around, and I thought, nobody makes any money in that. Everybody just tries real hard. And so I was going to be the youngest vice president in General Motors history. At least that's what I thought. But I started thinking, man, I better not tell the guy no, because if I tell him no, what if he walks away with my tens of thousands of dollars worth of cards I gave them. So literally, I got interested in networking, not because I wanted to get into networking. I got interested in networking because I didn't want to offend the guy that was selling my football and baseball cards and giving me money. And so the craziest event, I decided to sign up, not because I saw anything I was interested in, but I figured, well, maybe if I can sign up, I can get my cards back. Because at this point, I didn't think this guy was, I just didn't know if I could trust this guy. So I figured $150 sign up and ask him to bring back all my cards. Since I'm not going to sell my cards, I'm going to build this business. So I got my cards back, and I thought that was the end of it. Mm-hmm. But when I listened to my first CD and heard my first success story, it was that quick.
So it sounds like the way you got started is like, I think just like everybody else. At first you weren't quite interested, but then the more you got into really the heart of what this industry is about, the more you're attracted to it. And was it money that you were looking for at first? When you listen to the CDs, sure, stuff makes sense. Maybe
Sure.
the numbers make sense.
Sure. I needed $2,000 to $3,000 a month. I mean, I didn't think this was I needed enough money to replace enough of Lori's accounting salary because she was pregnant with our first child at the time. And I'm thinking, if I can make $2,000 to $3,000, that's enough money that I can bring Lori home and be the hero of my family. Like I promised Lori that I was going to be this big executive at GM. But the problem was GM was going backwards. So it's kind of hard to rise in a company who's dropping all of these people at that time. Mm-hmm. So I was in the looking zone, didn't realize it, didn't think it was going to have anything to do with networking. But when I started listening to CDs and realized that other people just like myself that had fears, just like myself that had problems and challenges, if they could do it, I could do it. And that's just kind of been one of my core beliefs for a long time playing sports. It's like, hey, when I wrestled, I wasn't the best wrestler when I started, but I figured if I just kept going at it, eventually I'd get good. Mm-hmm. And that belief system has helped me so much in networking because I was pretty much bad at every part of this business. However, I didn't stay bad. And I think that's true of anybody who succeeds. If you ask them, I'm sure they made plenty of mistakes. But the key is to learn from your mistakes and then go make a new mistake. Don't hog the same mistake, in other words. There's plenty of mistakes to go around.
Right. I mean, earlier today, when we were not on camera, we were talking about how we learn from our mistakes to become better people,
yes,
become better business owners. And without those mistakes, I don't think you would have made $2,000 to $3,000 a month to the point where you can afford this baby right here.
Yeah, I kind of overshot a little bit on that $2,000 to $3,000 figure.
I think the factor of safety is like 25 when you started doing your math. But it'll work out at the end.
Absolutely.
And so after you discovered networking, after you replaced your first $2,000 to $3,000 that you wanted to make, were you stuck at a place where you just couldn't grow out of the $2,000 to $3,000 zone?
Absolutely.
To move on to bigger and better things, or you just will all went
No,
uphill?
I wish
from
so.
there?
For 5.5 years, Jerry, I was stuck at less than $50,000, and I was working hard. I'm talking, I was going out sharing the opportunity 5-6 times a week, and I just couldn't get beyond how hard I could work. Like I was spinning plates. I'd get this one going, then I'd run over here and have to get this one going. And so Lori and I could work really hard, but we really worked ourselves into not even a high-paying job, but we worked ourselves into a job. Mm-hmm. And it really wasn't until I stumbled across a better understanding of leadership and developing other leaders that our business just, exploded to the next level, going from 200 people showing up to events after 5.5 years to 1 year later having over 1,200 people showing up to events.
So that's a growth of 600%. In
Being
1
the
year.
engineer, that's right.
In 1 year.
We 6 times our numbers at events and over 6 times our volume. Wow. In 1 year through understanding building as a team and leadership, developing leaders.
And I'd assume anybody who understands networking knows what he just said. What you just said was people showing up at events.
That's
not
right.
How many people in your business.
That's right.
These are the actual people that were doing something.
That's right. They were willing to sacrifice time and money to go to an event to learn how to build our business.
How big is your business now?
Well,
Size of organization.
at a local every monthly event we just under 16,000 people showed up to our last round of locals.
Wow.
So it's growing really fast right now. In fact, the fastest growth we've experienced just through you know, we help someone get started, and we know we got to help them get progress. If we can get progress, show them that the business works, and then through the process of getting progress, then they start making some money. So we kind of have a 4-step process: information, progress, profit, purpose. That's it. You get them information at first, then that leads to progress, which then leads to profit, which then leads to purpose. And once you get to purpose, you know, Lori and I we don't go build our business today so we can get another yacht. We don't build our business so we can get another house. We build it because it's our purpose.
Now, I've heard people say that purpose should always comes first when it comes to networking. But, I mean, I personally identify with that message. But at the same time, I think the newest person, a lot of times, can't really see that
right.
They want to make that first $50 or even the first $10.
It's, you know, purpose is kind of one of those things that it's walk a mile, see a mile. In other words, you don't start out, man, I didn't have any ways near. I mean, I got it. My purpose getting in was get my baseball cards back, you know, but it's walk a mile, see a mile. It's in that process of going out and getting a little progress, and all of a sudden turns into profit. At first, that's nice because it helped eliminate our $32,000 of consumer debt. And Lori was able to come home as a stay-at-home mom. But in the process of continuing to walk those miles and things opening up, we started realizing, man, this could really change the country. This could change the world. Getting the right information into people's hands can change everything. Because wisdom is applying the right principle at the right time into your life.
You know, what really triggered me, or what really intrigued me about the stuff that you do with your team and, you know, the training materials that I've heard since years and years ago, is that today, when people look at the network marketing industry or networking in general, right? I mean, people call that MLM or direct sales, whatever, word of mouth advertising, right? There's a lot of things people can leverage today, like cell phones and SEO or buying ads or, you know, internet in general. Now, I've had my share of experience in the internet marketing, but at the same time, I see a dire need for leadership development. And I don't know what your thoughts are about that. I mean, earlier we were talking where, you know, you share how you really don't know too much about internet marketing, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure you've seen people in our industry advertising and branding themselves on the internet, yet you may also notice that some of these people really have no idea what they're doing. I mean, they have the ability to put themselves on the map, but something doesn't seem quite right all the time. I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
You know, leadership development to me is just helping people get better. And the reason for that is better people build better businesses. And so many people, they're trying to produce this great lifestyle being average people. And I'm like, well, I guess it's possible for the short term, but you're never going to raise above your self-image and raise above your leadership capacity. In other words, if you've got a cup that can hold a quart, you can pour a gallon into it all day long, but the three quarts of that's flowing over the sides. It's only going to hold that quart. So we need to increase the capacity for leadership if you're going to build and maintain. You know, we call it building and bonding. We want to build a big business. So many people are like, man, wouldn't it be great to build to a 10,000 people team? And you're like, yeah, that's exciting. But if your capacity is only a 100 people team, guess what? Your 10,000 people team's going back to 100, because you can never lead for long. You can't lead for the long term above your capacity of leadership. And your capacity can be expanded, but it's not an overnight deal. It's not, I listened to some CD, I had some experience, I came to some seminar. I mean, that can process, but it's day after day doing the right principles. You know, like I talked about in the book, the 13 resolutions for life, is applying the right principles, and you have to inculcate those principles, those virtues into you. As I said in the book, you have to school your soul. If you school your soul on the right principles, then when you need that principle, it's in there, and it'll come out at the right time.
So, being true engineers that we are, what do you think are the action steps people can take away from what we just shared, right? I mean, before this interview, I was sharing with you how I spent 2 days in Austin, Texas at my company leadership event, and you know, the company VP was talking about reading a book and listening to audios, and you know, I mean, it might sound simple to do those two things, and I think it is important to listen to audio and read books. But what are other actionable steps to make sure it's not just going through the motion
Absolutely.
of listening to something and opening a book.
You know, true learning happens when you start really learning. You start creating this hunger that the more you learn, the more you want to learn. It's a never-ending process. It's like eating a great meal, but after you're finished eating, you're hungrier than you were to start. And that's what Chris Brady and I taught in our leadership book, Launching a Leadership Revolution, is that hunger is the beginning of all change. Hunger is the beginning of all leadership, because you've got to be hungry. So like I've watched you, Jerry, you're hungry to learn. So the reason that you continue to grow your businesses is because you're hungry to get better every day. So when you hear people say, well, I listened to a CD and I read a book and it didn't change anything. Well, of course not. I mean, it's not one thing. It's the daily disciplines that create change. It's kind of like, you know, you eat one piece of ice cream, that's not going to make you fat. But if you consistently eat ice cream, you're going to start to pack it on. Right. In the same way, if you listen to a CD, if you read a book, all the reading and listening in the world won't make you a champion until you apply it. But if you don't gather it in, at least then you get to the point, that courageous moment where, okay, I've heard some principles here. Am I going to leave the scene without doing anything with this? And, you know, my general principle is never leave the scene of a decision without applying some action towards achieving it. And when you create that habit, it's like, you know what, I heard on this CD that I need to go out and just start looking people in the eye and say, hello, my name Orrin Woodward, good to meet you. What's your name?
My name is Jerry.
Oh, Jerry, pleased to meet you. And if you just start creating that little habit all over, you don't need to contact them at that moment. It's just starting to make friends. What a concept for a no people skills engineer that was arguing early and late. But these principles, when I started applying them, you know, some people actually accuse me of being a people person today. But honestly, man, you give me a good book and a place to hide on my property, I could sit there and read all day long. But you have to stretch yourself out of your comfort zone if you're going to be a leader. And I've watched you do that, Jerry. I've had to do that. And everybody who succeeds in any field, they have to learn to love being out of their comfort zone. Because if you're in your comfort zone, you're no longer really learning. You're just doing things you're already good at.
Right.
But it's like a golfer that always practices the shot that he's already good at. Well, that's good that he keeps practicing it, but he's not going to become a championship golfer until he starts improving the spots that he's weak at.
So on that point of overcoming your fear and getting outside your comfort zone, this is a concept that's not foreign to a lot of people, but they just have trouble taking that first step. I mean, do you have any tips as far as what they can do to play a trick on their mind to overcome that? Absolutely.
You know, let's use me for example. I was deathly afraid of talking to people in the early days. And I read Magic of Thinking Big. It said, action conquers fear. I'm like, action conquers fear. That's the secret. And then I'm like, yeah, but I'm so afraid I can't get into action mode. So here's what I had to do to start picking up the phone and start becoming a contactor or sharing the opportunity. Because if you have the greatest opportunity in the world, if you won't share it. So I had to literally play this game with myself. I would sit there and imagine, what's the worst that's going to happen here? Or what's the worst that's going to happen if I pick up the phone and call this person? I mean, is he going to find out it's me, grab a gun, drive over to my house and fill me full of lead? Because how dare I interrupt his day by calling him? I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. And I'm like, well, what's the worst that's going to happen here? And I'm like, he's going to tell me no. I'm like, well, compared to getting shot full of lead, I guess a no's okay. I said, I think I can make this phone call. And I did it, and I got some no's, of course. But in the process, I realized, why am I so afraid of other people? I mean, I'm just communicating something that when I started listening and learning and realizing what the change it was in me, after I realized I'm not offering them a virus here. I'm offering them the same opportunity to change and grow that happened in my life. And once I got that, then it was like, hey, some will, some won't, so what?
That's perfect, and I think that's a pretty funny example of choosing between getting shot and
well, I had to put in perspective, you know, because fear is irrational, right. But we can make it sound so rational. We can think about it 1,000 times and play it through, but after a while, it's like, that's why action conquers fear. If you take the first step, it's kind of like, you know, I look at David and Goliath, you know, the Bible story. If David would have sat there and just kept looking at Goliath and not actually approaching him, grabbing his stones and approaching him, if he just kept looking at him, then eventually he'd have said, oh, he's way bigger than me, I don't think I stand a chance. But he action conquered fear. He said, man, I've killed a bear, I've killed a lion, I'm going to go kill Goliath. And think about it in life, the fears you have, think about them as Goliaths. Think about them as things that, you know, if you have a fear and you don't face it that day, Goliath grows a little bit bigger. and a little bit bigger. And so I, in my head, saying, all right, I've got a fear, I'm going to go face it. I remember speaking in front of people used to be a big fear of mine, but now, hey, I've got 11,000 people, 15,000 people, got to show up and deliver that talk. Well, I didn't start out, thankfully, speaking in front of 15,000 people. It's speaking in front of 5 people. And then, all right, my heart almost exploded, but I did survive, you know. And again, thinking, what's the worst? Are they going to attack me if I say a word? Of course not. And so it's action. Action is the key. I mean, you watch this video and say, wow, this is great stuff. Act on it. If you got someone to call them. If you know, and by moving towards your fear is reduced. Goliath is shrunk down to a midget when you act on the fear. If you don't act on it, Goliath continues to grow and grow, and that's where people get into that analysis paralysis and never accomplish what they truly deserve because they didn't move towards it.
Got it. Now, on the point of leadership, since this seems to be the theme of our talk here, what do you think, or what have you experienced in your own business and observing other leaders to be the difference maker between somebody who's leading a team of 100 people and somebody who's leading a team of 1,000, and then the next level up is 10,000 and even 100,000 people? And of course, we have this goal of reaching 1 million people.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to continue to elevate. So up until this point, what have you observed to be the biggest difference maker?
Absolutely.
When leaders rise up, when their organizations start to grow?
Character. And specifically in character, I narrowed even down further to courage. To have the courage of your character. In other words, there's a lot of people that recognize they need to change, but they don't have the courage to confront themselves. You hear about self-deception. So many people would rather tell themselves comfortable lies than deal with uncomfortable truths. But courage says, you know what? I can sit there and say I'm a great leader. As John Maxwell said, if you call yourself a leader and no one's following you, you're only out for a walk. But most people are like, oh, I'm not out for a walk. I just didn't invite anybody. Or no, this is what I wanted. And we start lying to ourselves. But it takes courage to say, no, Orrin, you're not the leader you need to be yet, and you want to be that straight line. You don't want to be that crooked line. And if I want to be this straight line, then I've got to confront these areas that are out of balance. I got to confront these areas where right now the customers are voting with their feet, no, and I've got to get better. So I've seen over and over, when a person starts lying to themselves, well, of course they're going to start lying to others, and then they don't get a big business. Because I love networking because it's the most pure form of free enterprise I know. People will not follow you because your position here. They won't follow you because you got a big pin. People follow you because you serve, you contribute into their lives. And when you stop contributing into their lives, they're going to vote no with their feet and not going to be part of your business. So if you've got 100 people on your team, you're contributing into 100 people's lives. If you've got 1,000, you're contributing into 1,000. Now, the beautiful thing about leadership, it's not that you got to do 1,000 times more work when you have 1,000 people. You might have taught 10 other people how to contribute into 100 people's lives.
Right.
So you have to keep growing your leadership so now you can lead someone who can lead 100 people. And so you start getting into the tens of thousands. Now you've actually learned, your capacity has grown to where you can pour into someone that has a pretty good leadership. So one of my favorite quotes is, I don't want to be the leader to a bunch of followers. I want to be the servant to a bunch of leaders.
That's a great point. I should write it down. Don't have a notepad here. Now that reminds me of something that we talk about a lot, which is edification, right? To be a servant of a bunch of leaders.
Absolutely.
You're definitely edifying other people. I mean, what can you say about edification? Because I see you do that a lot.
Yes.
I see that you always give the credit to other people. I mean, I remember last year in Houston at the Network Marketing Mastermind event, your whole talk was about edifying other speakers.
Yes.
I mean, even though that wasn't spelled out that way, but I see that you were doing it as you were moving along, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. I mean, every 5 minutes you give credit to the speaker right before you, and then you give the credit to the speaker after you, give it to the host. It's just amazing the kind of camaraderie, if you will, that kind of gels people together. I mean, what do you have to say about that, and how do you see that help you in your business?
You know, the Bible has a statement. It says, give honor to whom honor is due. And I think that's the power of edification. In other words, if I sit there and someone tries to shine light on me, and I just soak it in, yeah, I'm really good, yeah, thank you. But if someone shines light on me and I say, man, I appreciate that, but man, it's not me, Jerry. Let me tell you what Jerry did. Well, now, by taking that light, it's the amazing thing is a lit candle can light another candle, and it doesn't take away its own light. And yet so many people think that if I give someone else credit, it's taken from me. And that's where I was when I started in this whole profession, is I used to think that if I gave someone else credit, that somehow that was making me worse, or that was taking from me, because I looked at everything win-lose. But I just don't see the world that way. To me, when I see someone's gifts and abilities, I want to lift those up. I want to tell everybody I know. I mean, when I see, Jerry, what you can do with internet marketing, I'm just blown away. And I think, man, it would take me a decade of hard study, and I still wouldn't know as much as Jerry knew and was talking to me in 30 minutes. So why, instead of me competing against you, why don't I lift up to everybody I know, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go talk to my friends like Chris Brady. He's a best-selling author. I'm going to go share with him what I know and what I've learned from Jerry and my other friends. And so never look at the world like if you're giving credit or honor to somebody else, that's taking honor from you. In fact, I think that the more you lift other people up, like edification is a principle where you're lifting people up, and when people lift you up, if you can remember that as you're being lifted up, that only gives you a bigger platform to reach down and pull other people up to the higher platform so that we can do it again. So individuals grow, but teams explode. And you're never going to build a team until they know that no matter how hard they work, that they and what they do, no one else is going to try to take their credit. They know that when they do the work, that their leaders are going to make sure they're singled out for their excellent performance.
That's another point I should have written down. The point is, always have a notepad and a pen. Well, I appreciate you sharing with us today.
Oh, you're
Orrin.
welcome.
And this has been a great experience for me, and I'm sure it's a great experience for the viewers of this particular interview. I think there is really a desperate need for more leaders, and with what we shared today, I think even with the 30 minutes that we spent with people on this video today, there's some good nuggets they can take away from this interview and help themselves become better leaders and help their leaders become better leaders. And for that, I want to thank you.
You're welcome.
For taking the time. And you know, on this beautiful Sunday, sitting on the yacht, it's definitely relaxing, and this is probably the most relaxed I've ever been recording an interview. Sea breeze coming, blowing in my face, and we actually have a little bucket here filled with beverages. Life is good. So anyhow, with that said, this is Mr. Orrin Woodward, and if you want to reach him, you can go to your blog. Is that the best place?
Yep, OrrinWoodwardBlog.com.
OrrinWoodwardBlog.com, or you can find him on Facebook, facebook.com/Orrin.Woodward. That's your Facebook profile.
Yep.
Okay, with that said, we're gonna go hang out, and thanks for watching. I will see you next time. Take care.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.